Welcome to the Young Terps podcast. Instant reactions here from CQ Stadium after the Terps top Towson 38-6. Ahmed, what'd you see out there?
Yeah, well, obviously it was a great day to just kind of kick off the season. I think the passing attack, was obviously what kind of led Maryland. I think the rushing game, you just saw a little bit of inconsistency, mainly with Roman Hemby and Antoine Littleton primarily taking the carries. So a lot more to like defensively maybe than on offense, with a little less balance there, but nonetheless, first good win.
Yeah, and I'll start off by saying, and I should have probably kicked the show off by saying this is our first time doing this. We got a tripod out here on Pinker Terrace where you actually see people watching the game during the day. They're breaking down the stadium right now, so apologize in advance. We're going to try and improve this over the next couple of weeks. Week one, start of a new show here. Yeah, I thought the running back room started off a little slow. I think they could have done a little bit more maybe to get them involved in the passing game, but in the second half, the Terps really kind of slowed the game down, tried to eat some of the clock, really weren't seeing much of the vertical attack that we saw in the first half.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Obviously, I think, with Maryland, I think we were able to score touchdowns in the first two possessions, three of the first four possessions, with Lee obviously accounting for one of those rushing touchdowns, recording four touchdowns in the same half for the second time in his career as well. So yeah, obviously, the passing attack was kind of able to pick apart that Towson secondary, but I think obviously just kind of with the offensive line still a work in progress, whether Maryland's able to kind of create that balance will probably be the biggest question going into week two.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And well, we basically started off talking about the offense, so we'll just continue on that. Offensive line, something we've talked about nonstop on this show. I liked a lot of what I saw. There were some little things I thought Towson brought out, and Loxley said in his press conference, are really, really different. He called it a zero rat, where there really is not a safety or maybe a single high at the most. Not a lot of really true inside linebackers from Towson on the field. Really, really unique and different look that I think will serve them well. The Terps line combos handled it well. I think Connor Fagan, the guy who a lot of people will be concerned about, looked pretty good out there.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I think Fagan, he's a guy, and he's done well, even in the spring, kind of building off a good spring where he's able to provide some good depth there at tackle. So obviously the biggest takeaway on the offensive line was Gottlieb Biedzy no longer inactive, today, along with DeAndre Duffus, among 8 other guys that were out today. So like you mentioned, Corey Bullock, he was a guy who actually played a lot more center today, especially in the second half. We saw Eric Harris, Mike Purcell rotating in at center. We saw Kyle Long, Amelie Moran, all these guys, Marcus Dumerville, all these guys rotate in. So yeah, like you said, all eyes were on the offensive line. But
yeah, kind of a funny comment from Loxley when he said, we usually don't rotate our offensive line mid-series, which is something that we definitely saw last year throughout the year. And 3 centers snapped the ball today while Leah's in the game, which is something that when you talk about consistency, we saw all the combos that I think they could possibly throw out there that are going to be playable, obviously with guys being out injured, but Bullock really stepped in there at center. I think him and Kyle Long was all over the field when they were running pulling guard plays, when they were running screens. He was the guy getting furthest down the field, 20, 30 yards down the field in those moments. He was a guy when he came in, everybody was like, this is a developmental piece. We're going to need to see him. Well, now you're seeing one of the few guys from that class in terms of offensive linemen that's still in the program. And look, they need to use those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, him and Amelia Moran were 2 of the primary candidates to take over at left guard there, as Maryland was able to try and figure out what the offensive line would look like for this season. So I think he looked really well, obviously, like we said. And Kevin Kalanji, he's another guy who joined the program this summer. He was able to slide in at right tackle as well. So a lot of different combos. And like you said, Locks, it's very, very common, especially for offensive linemen. It's not the skill position player. So very rarely do you see these offensive linemen rotate in mid-series, things like that. I think I saw Corey Bullock take himself out of one series, and I believe Kyle Long was the one that stepped in. So we'll definitely be doing a deeper dive over on Untouched Black and Gold of all the rotations, how everyone worked out, and what maybe the areas of growth. But definitely that was all eyes on the trenches there.
Yeah, Ahmed, last 2 notes from me on that. Kalanji, I thought he looked good. Didn't really get in until the game was definitely done.
Yeah.
And then no Andre Roy. I don't think I saw him out there for 1 snap, which is something that is a little bit questionable given how highly they touted him coming in.
Yeah, Roy was he DeAndre Duffus, and Gottlieb Biedzy were all ruled out on Saturday. Janelle Brown, actually, I thought that was a guy that was a little bit interesting that we really did not see him play until the second half. Avante Williams, I'm going to turn back the tape, but I don't think I saw him in on 1 play on Saturday. So those are 2, I think, pieces kind of on the defensive side of the ball, where with the new Big Ten rule with the injury reports. That's kind of the big thing now. But on the offensive side, we'll see. Neo Avery was another guy who didn't play, but on the offensive side of the ball, we'll see if Andre Roy, Duffus, and Yedzi are able to come back on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, I was down on the field and I started texting you guys around. And you're like, yeah, I know the injury report's on. I was like, I completely missed that one today. I knew that it was coming, but it was just like such a natural thing to be down there, kind of looking who's in, who's out, and well, now it's like the pros. You got to put out who's not playing.
It's all the DraftKings and the FanDuel, all of that now. So, but yeah, definitely nice to have some transparency on that regard.
In the receiving games, a ton of guys got touches today. I think Tyrese Chambers, probably the biggest surprise that he wasn't, out there with the first group. He wasn't getting as many touches, being one of those highlight guys. But you saw when they really needed yards, the guys who were out there: Ja'Shawn Jones, Corey Dyches, your kind of expected cast of characters. I think Octavian Smith has to be one of your big highlight guys. He looked great today.
Yeah, and Octavian Smith, he also had a kick return that looked like it had potential for a big play. That he got out to around the 40 or so. But yeah, I mean, the offensive side, the day started with Corey Dyches switching from 84 to 2, and it ended with Corey Dyches recording his second career 100-yard receiving game. And obviously, like you said, I think much has been made of the wide receiver room and how these guys complement each other. Caden Breaker was another guy who caught his first career touchdown as a Terp. But I mean, Dyches, I think it's been a little bit surprising to me that Dyches isn't really considered among the top pass catching tight ends, let alone in the conference, in the country. So I think today was that first chance for him to prove that.
I mean, he's starting to stick out to me as a clear NFL-looking tight end. Yeah. I mean, he echoes different pieces of one guy who you're definitely going to see playing on Sundays, but possibly not with the Maryland tag next to his name, C.J. Dupree from last year. And then I think you really see elements of Chigakonkwo's game, just the way he gets out in the flat. He's very, very athletic once he has the ball in his hands. He can do a lot of different things. I would not be surprised if this is his last year here in college.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely fair. I mean, you look at, Dyches, when he joined Maryland, he was that perimeter wide receiver over at Potomac, red zone threat, had the basketball background as well, had a chance to, walk on over at Maryland on the basketball team, but just the overall athleticism and the red zone threat that he provides, obviously, I think that makes him kind of one of those primary guys, if not, maybe option 1A, 1B alongside Ja'Shawn Jones.
Yeah, another thing you have to point out, the deep balls today, not exactly on time. I think that's going to be the biggest thing for me looking into week 2 for this offense is, can Leah really trust that when he sees that one-on-one coverage with no high safety or one high safety and he really likes what he's seeing, just pull the trigger on it. I think there were about 6 counted throughout the game, and 2 of them he pulled the trigger on them, and it was one I felt dropped, and the other one that I think just Prather didn't turn it into a go route when he probably should have. He was up high over the middle, which gave an opportunity for the Towson defense to react a little bit. You just really would love to see him turn it loose to some of these guys that can really get vertical.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Obviously, I think just kind of with being able to kind of create some of these advantages with some of these wide receivers, I think that's going to be the big thing. And kind of going into week 2, I think obviously Loxley talked about just the what they were able to do offensively through the passing game, things like that. But like you said, just kind of being able to take care of some of those deep balls. I think Prather, that was a result of Talia getting some pressure, and that was maybe some chemistry, some miscommunication. So and Loxley talked about it, especially with Charlotte coming to town next week. You usually see that biggest jump from week 1 to week 2. So definitely they'll have their hands full next week. Maybe in the first half though. So we'll see how they adjust there.
Last thing from the offensive side of the ball, tight end room. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for somebody to step up there and really take that, I guess 1B role is what it's been in Maryland's offense for this year. I really think it's whoever can block the best at tight end is going to get the 1B role.
Yeah, and I think, we saw Preston Howard. I think he was able to, maybe didn't make the biggest impact today, but, Rico Walker, he was another guy. And then in the second half, when, the game was much decided, we saw a lot more Dylan Wade, a little bit of AJ Szymanski as well, as Loxley he cited Szymanski as a guy who can block the C gap really well, and that's why he's able to kind of create that role for him. And, the performance comes less than 48 hours after, Loxley just praised the tight end room and said, hey, the running back room last year, we might be unproven, might have some young pieces, but watch out for us. And now look, and he's saying the same thing about that tight end room now. So obviously, we talked about Corey Dyches, what he's able to do in terms of immediate impact, but you get a chance to watch a guy like a bigger body, bigger frame tight end like Rico Walker, who's still able to move well in the open space, and then Preston Howard, just a really athletic second-year tight end who's just coming into himself at the position.
Yeah, I don't think Locks will be too happy about seeing that ineligible man downfield again.
Yeah.
I think it really got him last year. That one was a lot more meaningful than this year's. But I would think that he's going to be pointing that out on tape, and maybe you'll pull up the clip from last year too and say, this is what this can do to your season. You cannot have that happen.
That's definitely not.
Cost Rico Walker his first touchdown as a Terp. Defensive side of the ball for Maryland, dominant performance, but still questions with pass rush.
Yeah, I think, like we said, Donnell Brown, he was a guy who stepped in the second half, and I thought he did a really good job. As soon as he was in, it was really hard to miss the speed that he provided on the edge, but Maryland recorded 3 tackles for loss today. Just did struggle just generating pressure. We saw Kellen Wyatt, I mentioned him over on Inside the Black and Gold, as someone that's done a really good job kind of through the off season, but we saw him a lot, where lined up a lot more at Jack, but also found himself with his hands in the dirt to kind of help Maryland trying to get creative in that front seven. We saw a lot of Caleb Wheatland, Fanaja Gote with Jason Barham, on the sidelines. So a lot of mix and matching, as Loxley talked about. They played a lot of young guys today, but generating pressure, that was the biggest question mark on this defense. So they'll need to do that in week 2.
Yeah, a lot of different combos of guys. I think Daniel Owens got some time in there today. Wilmot's name was called a lot on that side of the ball, but the one thing that really got me, or that I don't like to see, and Locks talked about it a little bit as well, is when they lost contain on the quarterback. I think that's something that they really have got to work on as the season goes on. Is if you can't rush the passer, you also cannot let the guy get outside the pocket and hurt you that way. If you're going to know that that's going to be a weakness, turning the corner is going to be a weakness for you, then you really have to pin down those edges, make the other team play you straight up. So then when you bring in outside pressure, when you look to do some of those different packages that we've discussed on this show, get creative in your blitz game, you have a clear target of what you're aiming at, which is just, it's really key. Because Caleb Wheatland had an opportunity, or maybe 1 or 2 in this game, one that really stuck out in my mind, where he lost the chance to sack the quarterback, a couple where you see guys shoot the gap, you shoot the gap and then you're there to make the play, but hey, your left end, or in Maryland's case, the jack linebacker does not hold down his side, or your anchor doesn't hold down their end of the field. You need to be in your spot when you know that there's a blitz coming, and that's something that needs to be hammered home by B. Will and the linebackers coach and the line coach. That's a 3-prong. There should be 3 position coaches and your defensive coordinator going back at the tape and highlighting those moments and correcting those things.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, I think all offseason, just takeaways, generating pressure. I think that's kind of been the big thing. So, we'll see. I think it's a little bit concerning that, obviously just given the competition, Maryland kind of struggled in that regard. But like we said, whether, Donnell Brown is able to maybe play a little bit more in week 2, and he's able to kind of maybe fill into that for that void. That kind of remains to be seen, but definitely still remains a question mark, and I'm not sure what we saw today. I think one good thing about the defense was that you really didn't see too many big plays after things stayed in front of them, but there is one weakness. It'd be the lack of consistent pressure.
Yeah, I thought the play in the secondary, more of just a kind of off take of it. The play in the secondary today for Maryland was extremely physical and was very, very refereed almost the exact opposite of the way it was refereed last year. I'm not sure if you caught that.
Yeah, just a little bit. I think so. I think a lot more. There are a couple defensive holdings or pass interference in general that I thought that could have been called, but definitely let them play a little bit more today.
Yeah, Jaquan Shepard stuck out to me. I think he's really, really physical and long corner, can really hold down the boundary side for Maryland this year. I don't really know how much you can judge. I want to go back and watch the game, and some of those moments that Towson's receivers are blocking Maryland's corners 15, 20 yards upfield, almost just looking to get a pass interference call, not necessarily looking to make a play on the ball. Bo Braid and Dante Trader, it's one of those games when the other team has 6 points, I don't want to hear my safeties' names called a ton. I think that those two didn't really need to get overly involved in the game for the Terps today.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Obviously, Bo Braid finished with a game high, or team high 6 tackles in the win. But yeah, I think we looked at a lot last year with Dante Trader and Bo Braid. I think finishing 1 and 2 in terms of total tackles. He definitely is not a trend that you want to see going into the rest of the season. But just overall, I thought just kind of a sound day from the defense. Obviously, some things for them to be able to build on. But overall, like I said, just the lack of big plays that were allowed. I think that's kind of something that gives some confidence going into week 2.
Yeah. What else? What other takes do you have? What stuck out to you?
Yeah, obviously, like we said, just we talked about the offensive line. I think that's going to be the biggest thing, ironing out the starting 5. Whether Eric Harris, whether he can maybe create a role for himself, whether he stays in a rotation, that remains to be seen. But I just think kind of ironing that out, and then just being able to generate. We talked about being able to generate more balanced offense this year with a lot more of these veteran running backs. Can Maryland do that? Can they take that stride in the trenches to be able to create more balance, force opposing defenses to play a bit more honest, and then we're able to see guys, the big play guys like Caden Prather, Ty Felton, take the top off the defense. So I think those are kind of the two things that I'm kind of looking for in week 2 that jumped out to me today.
Yeah, I really have 3 things. One is finding a rotation up front and really sticking to it. I would love to see that. I know I've said that repeatedly, and I know some of you that comment on our shows agree with me on that one and really also want to see it. I would really like to see them pin down a group of 5 guys that can play up front so they can find the rhythm in it. And so when there's Big Ten play here, the ball's not getting snapped over Leah's head. There were a couple that got close today, but that's something that you would really like to see pinned down. The second one is just the little timing things, one on offense, one on defense. The contain on defense, being in the right spot, right place, right time. And then the deep ball timing on offense, taking those shot plays. I love that I'm seeing that from Maryland. I really think they have a handful of guys you can throw those balls to, but when you're throwing them and you know that you have that opportunity, you just have to take it. You have to read your hot routes. You have to be on time. You have to make it. And the third one, I really like the game day experience. I think they upgraded that. I think the scoreboard stuff was good. The fan interaction was good. They had a decent crowd out here, at least for the first half of the game. Caden Prather said it best. He came out for the second half and was like, what happened here? But next week, hopefully they step it up. Late show will be back here, and we'll see. I'm excited for next week. This game got a little chippy. I think next week you'll see some fireworks on the field. Hopefully they keep it clean. Maryland, again, got to keep your headspace there, because the Big Ten is not afraid to suspend players for fighting in game. That's something that the conference really does stick on.
I think it not even from that regard. I think we looked at a couple years ago. Fans love to and I think he's made strides, but fans love to bring up Deshaun Jones and unsportsmanlike. And Charlotte, we've said it 1,000,001 times. They are very confident, and they are letting everyone know that they are confident going into week 2. Are we going to see some cheap shots? I fully expect that, but I think it's maybe the emotional maturity that Loxley has talked about with Talia in the past, and the discipline. Taking that next step. I think next week we'll kind of be able to give the team a chance to prove exactly that, the mental toughness. Because, like I said, there were definitely some cheap shots, got a little chippy, like you said, against Towson, and it ain't going to get much better against Charlotte. So I think that'll be really interesting to watch in week 2.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one in depth. We're going to record again on Tuesday night. We'll talk Charlotte, see what their week 1 results are, who to watch in that game. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like this, comment it. If you want to see more of this, let us know. We're thinking about going live from here if we can pull off the cell or internet connection from this spot. Sometimes it depends on what day of the week it is. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not here. So we're going to try that later on in the year. And as always, thanks for watching.